Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Unscripted. Today is January 3rd, 2024. Happy New Year. It's the first show of the new year. And today we'll be starting off with some bit of some sad news. On December 23rd, Michigan State freshman point guard Jeremy Fears Jr. was shot in the leg near his hometown of Joliet, Illinois. The injuries were non-life threatening, but nonetheless, it's a horrible, horrible situation. The last thing that I read was there is no official timetable for his return to the basketball court. He's just trying to focus on a recovery, and obviously, as fans, we're all just hoping for a speedy and easy recovery for Jeremy and hoping for the best for him and his family. And I think everyone was really glad to hear at the end of the day that the injuries he sustained were not life-threatening and that everything is going to be okay. And so definitely thought we needed to start the show off today with that. Um, Beers did return to the East Lansing for the Indiana State game and sat on the bench, which was good to see. But yeah, it was a very tough situation.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we all, hope to see him back on the court, but at this moment, that's not any of our main thoughts, right? We just want to make sure he's gets through what he went through, right? Make sure he's okay. And obviously, it was a really tough situation for probably everybody, right? And for us to all find out. And, I think definitely as a Michigan State fan, right? I think there's something really special about our culture and our fan base. And I think you saw right away how everyone was really able to get behind him. And then you saw the players and coach right away. And I think everyone's going to be behind him on, as he makes his way back to the court, whenever that is. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, you said it. We hope he can get back to the court, but hope for more. That's a life deal at that point. This is so much more than just basketball or a sport or whatever. So, our thoughts and prayers are with the Fears family and Jeremy. Um, so yeah, we can kick it to some basketball. Um, Michigan State took down Indiana State at home. Let me find the score. It was 87 to 75. Um, I thought Michigan State played a great game. I thought AJ Hoggard was really the one top bright spot for the Spartans. But Johnny, I'll start with you and get your thoughts on this game. What did you notice? What did you see from the Indiana State game?
Yeah, I think we saw it once again, a hungry Spartan team, right? I think they showed they continue to play the way we expected them to play, not the beginning of the season. It was a very good Indiana State team going into the game with only one loss. And, we saw them shoot the lights out from three, some unbelievable shots. Swope was unbelievable.
Yeah,
But I think you saw the resilience of this team, and they when this Indiana State team made a little run late in that second half, you didn't see the Spartans kind of quit. They came right back, and that last kind of 10 minutes of the game was totally different. They were able to really lock down defensively, and then you saw Indiana State try and change something up with zone and killed it right away with two Malik Hall baskets and really kind of separated the game. And I think that was really a huge difference. And I think just talking about the resilience of this team, and I think you talked about it with Hoggard quickly right there, kind of him being the leader and the vocal point of this team. I think you're starting to see this team get in a really good form going into the rest of the Big Ten play.
yeah. Hoggard was amazing, and you touched on it. Isaiah Swope for Indiana State, the junior guard, was just out of this mind, out of the world, out of this world good. He shot 50% from the field and 6 of 13 from three, but it just felt like those numbers were way better. He finished with 26 points for the Sycamores. It felt like every time Michigan State would pull ahead, Swope would hit a big shot and pull the Sycamores right back in it. But yeah, you touched on it. The Spartans went on a 23 to 6 run over a 9 minute and 20 second stretches from like 10 minutes left in the second half to a minute and a half left in the game. And that's essentially what won the game for them was that last 10 minutes, which you touched on. And this kind of reminded me of like the Duke game earlier in the year where they had it. It was like close around that 8 to 10 minute mark. The game's really getting close and it's not going to be decided in the next few minutes, but when those next few minutes are super critical, Michigan State really showed that they've grown a little bit and have found a way to win and get hot and not squander the lead fully because they had a 10-point lead at halftime, and then we saw that go down to I think they got it down to three at one point, and then or no, they tied. Indiana State took the lead. Yeah, yeah. And then Michigan State was able to rally and come back, go on that big run. And yeah, you touched on it when they went to that zone. Malik Hall had a huge second half. But when they went to that zone, he went right to that high post, hit a jumper, and then next possession, pump fake from the same spot, drive, dunk. It was great to see. I thought the defense was great again. They forced 11, sorry. They forced 11 turnovers in the first half. They had 9 offensive rebounds in the first half. So those were two very good things to see. Um, yeah, it was pretty balanced, I thought. Walker had a slow start to the game, didn't have a great first half. Um, he had still had 10 points at halftime, but his efficiency wasn't great. He was 5 for 15 from the field. Got a lot of his work done from the free throw line, but Hoggard 17, Hall at 18, and 8 rebounds and 5 assists. Great game from Malik. And then Akins at 13. So they had four guys with 13 plus points. It's a lot different than what we saw from the start of the season when it was really a one-man show.
Yeah, I think you touched on it was Tyson Walker, right? Not his best shooting game, but for your best overall player, best scorer, still find a way and get 22 points is huge, and he earned it from the foul line. But you're right, Hoggard, Hall, really great games for them. Akins ended up with 13. I was really impressed with Mady Sissoko's game. I think he started slow, and I was a little worried at the start of the game with him out there on Avila. But as the game went on, I think you saw Mady just toughen up. I think he finished with 12 rebounds, and they all really came late in that game where it didn't matter who was on him. He was going up and grabbing it. And I think that's just what we need from him, right? We don't, we know he has some issues offensively and can't always catch the ball sometimes, but his effort level when he's giving it his all, he's it's hard. He is an excellent rebounder when he's giving it his all. So it was great to see that from him, and I just really hope we can see that version of Mady every game going forward.
Yeah, he seemed like he was everywhere, especially in that second half. And you kind of touched on it. Walker had this amazing just drive and just this beautiful drop off pass to Sissoko right underneath the bucket. Got to catch the ball, Marty, but it's all right. He did have a great game, I thought. Michigan State, yeah, they finished with 7 steals, 6 blocks, so the defense we've seen continue to just thrive really. And they also dominated in the paint, 46 points in the paint to Indiana State's 20. And yet, like we've been looking for a bit of an answer offensively in the post game, and we've kind of been pointing out how Michigan State's been lacking that. And even though Sissoko and Cooper maybe didn't have the most points on the team or whatever, great box scores, I forgot how many they scored, but just having 46 to 20 points in the paint is so big and finding different ways to be able to get there. And I think a lot of that does come from Hoggard and his aggressiveness. And he's been playing so much better in the last month. Um, Comparing his December to November is just crazy. Because he's just been so much better, so much more efficient, and it's made all the difference for this team.
Yeah, and Hoger, I think like you said, the 2 months you can't even compare, right? And I think it's just him being locked in and him realizing what he is to this team and being the vocal guy, being the leader of this team. And, I think you see him take charge now and realizing he can do whatever he wants, really what he wants, because when he is able to get into the lane, it opens up so many options, right? And he was excellent at getting into the paint, like you said, the paint points and finishing at the rim and these little floaters, and then be able to get it to Malik. And then, I think he had Cohen Carr, right? You get him going to the basket on, back cuts, but it all starts with him being able to move the ball and getting to the lane. But yeah, I mean, going forward, he's our guy, he's our leader, and I think he knows that, and the team knows that, and that's just a really great thing.
Yeah. Something I thought was interesting from this game, only three players came off the bench for the Spartans. Carr, Cooper, and Holloman were the only players to come off the bench and play. Obviously, not having Fears is a part of that, but I thought it was interesting not having Fears. They didn't go to any more depth. Booker didn't see any time. Um, yeah, I don't know. I just the depth I think was something we talked about at the beginning of the year, and only having three players come off the bench in your last non-conference game, it's just something that I noticed definitely. But yeah, another thing I noticed, 23 of 27 from the free throw line. So Michigan State really able to do a lot better job in this one of getting to the line and converting for 85%. But yeah, I don't have anything else for the Indiana State game. Do you, Johnny?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll touch on is right, we talked about was the bench, right? There was no Booker, which, I guess some people could be surprised, but, without Fears now going forward, it's a shorter bench, and, Holloman might take a little bit of a different approach when on the court, might be a little bit extra, more of a point guard at times. But, obviously, we're looking forward to getting Jackson Kohler back soon. It sounds like there's a chance for, I think he said Northwestern, the chance. I doubt it. My guess would be looking forward to after that.
I think I
But
I saw a tweet on it the other day.
mm,
One sec. Yeah, Kyle Austin tweeted that Kohler has his boot off and is participating in individual workouts. Izzo said the team is hoping he can fully practice next week, and that was 5 days ago.
mm.
So I think that makes it sound like they're hoping to get him in practice this week. So that would definitely be a big boost for us. But yeah, Michigan State takes on Penn State Thursday night at 7 in East Lansing. The game will be on Peacock, so prepare accordingly if you have to. And then we are going to do a little bit of a Big Ten preview. So with conference play rolling around, well, the Spartans are 0-2 in conference play already with losses to Wisconsin and Nebraska. But now that the rest of the season is conference games besides the tournament, um, Johnny and I thought we would do a Big Ten preview and get to talk a little bit about some other teams outside of the Spartans. Um, so yeah, we're gonna go through. We're gonna do our awards for the season. Our first team, all Big Ten. Our top 10, our who we think's gonna finish in order in the top 10, and then maybe a couple extra notes from us. So, Johnny, I will let you start it off. Breaking news. Who do you think is going to be the Big Ten Player of the Year this year?
Ooh, I mean, that was a tough choice. No, but I mean, you have to pick Zach Edey, right? He's the best player in the country. And so, unfortunately, whoever comes, he's the best player in the country. He's probably gonna be the favorite for the player of the year, in all of basketball. But yeah, he just does it all for them, right? People talk about his size and how it's just his size, but it's just not. His footwork in the paint is unbelievable, and it's just he's fun to watch. He really is, and as it's painful to watch as a Michigan State fan, when he's on the court, they're the best team in basketball, and we saw it last year, right? Obviously, they fell to a 16 seed, but they were the best team all regular season last year, and so far this year, it's been the same way, and it's because of him.
Yeah, I that's it you said everything I could have said. I literally wrote down for this Player of the Year, Zach Edey dash rating National Player of the Year. Don't really need to explain this one.
That's how
Yeah,
it
I mean
is.
he's the best player in the country, and I agree with you. I used to be one of the people that said he wouldn't be great if he wasn't 7'4". That's just not true. He as last year we really saw his like game fully come together, and now he just comes back for one more year to just further dominate. So we'll roll right into defensive player of the year. Who do you got, Johnny?
Ooh, I might have missed that one.
You missed it?
I missed
Okay,
it.
well I'll
You
go
go
with
first.
mine.
Actually, well, there's a couple. You go first. I
Yeah,
definitely have some names in mind
yeah.
though.
Okay, so my pick for defensive player of the year is Clifford Amori. I know I butchered the last name.
Yeah.
I tried. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to Clifford if he somehow hears this. I truly am. The Rutgers big man. He's got such long arms, made first team Big Ten all defense last season, was second in the Big Ten in blocks last season. I know Rutgers fans weren't really expecting to get him back this season, and or there was some question marks on if he would return or not. Um, and he did come back. Johnny, you're from New Jersey, so you probably know some Rutgers fans. If not,
Mhm.
you definitely know about Clifford. You probably know how to say his name, but yeah, he's my pick for Defensive Player of the Year. I thought last year he was, he's la definitely a contender last season, and so Clifford is my pick for Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I think I would have had him too, honestly. He's just unbelievable in size, inside. Um, yeah, I don't know what he's at. It looks like looking at this, he's averaging 3.4 blocks a game.
Yeah,
That is
he is
not
unreal.
fair.
He's unreal defending the
But
interior. He's so good.
yeah, his size, but he's so strong. And I remember watching him last year when he came to Breslin, and I couldn't believe his ability to jump. Like I've never seen somebody dunk the ball so fast before.
Yeah.
Like it's so weird to see. But yeah, that's who I would go as. I think another possibility are some other bigs in the league. Julian Reese, I think, is an excellent big. We're talking bigs with blocks, but Ace Baldwin's another interesting one. I think he's a really good guard. I would say Penn State will play tomorrow. Very active in the passing lanes, was over 2.5 steals a game. But you're right. I think I would go as Clifford Amorie too.
Yeah, I think those two other guys you named are definitely some other guys that you could look at. Felix Okpara at Ohio State is averaging 2.3 blocks, and so is Edie. So Edie might end up winning this award too. I wouldn't be totally surprised. No, I would be if he did, but yeah, but I we're in agreement so far. Freshman of the year next. Who is let me hear it, Johnny. Who do you have for freshman of the year? I'm really hoping we don't agree on this one.
I mean, I thought there were some really compelling options. I went was Owen Freeman of
Okay, we do have
Iowa.
different ones.
So, and it's tough. I mean, Owen Freeman is one I picked. I think obviously Mackenzie Mbako, another option. Cameron Christie's been playing well. Also Deshaun Harris. I think you can keep going on. But I went with Owen Freeman, my bad. Uh, I've been trying to watch as much as I can, and he's been super impressive. And even only having 20 minutes a game, last night versus Wisconsin, he had 14 and 13, and he's just been really efficient. And I don't know Wards, right? There's all, if it comes down to the better team, obviously Iowa's not off to the best start in the conference, but I was super impressed with him, and I expect as the year goes on, uh, he continues to add more to that Iowa team.
Yeah, I actually haven't been able to catch an Iowa game yet this year. But yeah, I'm looking at his numbers right now. 10 points per game, essentially 6 rebounds per game, 62% shooting. Those are some pretty good numbers. 6'10", 230 freshman. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I I'm gonna have to get my eyes on this guy because I have not been able to yet. My pick for freshman of the year, you mentioned him, Cam Christie, the younger brother of former Spartan Max Christie. He's a shooting guard at Minnesota, 6'5". He's a creative scorer. He's I think it's at 160 pounds. So he's a similar build to Max Christie, but a little taller, maybe even a little skinnier, but he's able to use his size to get mismatches on the perimeter and inside and take advantage of those. He's averaging 11 points per game this season, shooting 45% from the field. I think he just has an opportunity playing for Minnesota to really take the next step and like throughout Big Ten play, become one of the better players on the team. If not like one of the leaders being a freshman, which is hard to do at the start of the year. But obviously being Michigan State people, we know Max Christie's talent and he, maybe didn't have the career that some Spartan fans were hoping for, but we all know he's got all the talent in the world. And so I'm Cam Christie. the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And yeah, so Cam Christie, that's my pick, the Minnesota man.
Yeah, I think
Uh
that's fair. I think it's fair. I definitely considered him.
yeah,
So
and
yeah.
like you said, there are some good options. Mackenzie Mbako, I also thought about. Um, I'm blanking. Okay, I'm not even gonna go down there. Sixth man of the year, I blanked out. ADHD brain, man. Sixth man of the year. I'll go on this one. I'll start. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Uh, I'm going with Trey Holloman, Michigan State guard. Holloman has emerged as an X factor in the last few weeks for Tom Izzo in the non-conference play. And as the season's gone on, he's looked more and more comfortable playing and he's upped his aggressiveness, it seems almost every single game. He's only averaging 6 points per game right now, but with Jeremy Fears being out for probably the rest of the year or unknowingly how long, I expect Holloman's numbers to shoot up, skyrocket. I think he'll probably be averaging close to double digits by the end of the season. His assist numbers will probably be up, and he's also such a stud on the defensive end that I think that he just will make a great case for sixth man of the year.
Yeah, I think he was, definitely one I considered, and I was going back and forth. And mine probably depends a little bit on the Illinois situation with Terrence Shannon. So I had one, but it looks like he might have came into the starting spot
We'll
for
say that he
Shannon.
didn't.
So,
We'll
but
go
I
with
think, yeah,
yeah,
we can talk about when we go to the rankings. But I think Luke Goody is one who was coming off the bench for
yeah.
Illinois, and now if he steps into that, loses that six man, but he's really progressed well over the past couple of years at Illinois, and that's a talented team there, and he can really come off the bench and score. So that was definitely one I consider. And also was Trey Holloman, you're right. With Fears down, he's the guy off the bench for the guards, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities for him to score. We've seen him really look to rebound in games too, and Pat, he's done it all for us. So will definitely be two interesting options going forward this year.
Yeah, and Luke Getty, you mentioned him. He's a junior. He's been there for a few years. Um, has been an X factor for Illinois in the past, and definitely is a guy that I could see taking home this award. So coach of the year, um, I'm going with Chris Holtmann, Ohio State. The Buckeyes last year really struggled. They finished 16 and 19, 5 and 15 in the Big Ten. Really just a down year for Chris Holtmann and the guys. But currently the Buckeyes are 11 and 2. And while they did already lose to Penn State, they did pick up a non-conference win against Alabama. Um, and I expect them to make the tournament this year, honestly. I'm a big fan of Bruce Thornton, the sophomore guard. He's at 6'2", 215. He is such a mismatch for so many guards. I was at the Big Ten tournament last year, and he caused problems for everyone, caused problems for Hogard and Walker in the Michigan State game, and continue to do so in every game. And then another familiar name on that Ohio State squad, Jamison Battle. He's a transfer from Minnesota fans. So far this season, he's averaging 14 points per game and shooting 42% from three. Bruce Thornton's already averaging 16, so they've got some guys over there in Columbus. And I think Holtman's a good coach. He's had good teams in the past. Um, I just think last year, coming off of the tough season and having a good start to this season, if they continued their strong start into having a full-on good year, I think it's a pretty easy choice for the Big Ten to go with Chris Holtmann for the storyline off the comeback of struggling last season.
As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook for this college basketball season. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks and predictions throughout the college basketball season. And we are going to have special offers for you, the listeners, and the viewers on the Field of 68 each and every week during the season. If you haven't signed up with BetMGM yet, use the bonus code FIELD1500 and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager on BetMGM Sportsbook. Here's what you got to do. Download the BetMGM app. Sign up using the bonus code 1500. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if that bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FIELD1500 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available under one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient for me when I have to go cover games in New York or Philly. When crossing state borders, just log into your existing account instead of having to create new accounts in each state that you go to. And most importantly, I got to let you know, we do have some fun stuff coming up for this college basketball season. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boosts, my personal favorite, parlay odds boosts. So download the BetMGM app today.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I think he was second on my list. But I went with Greg Gard of Wisconsin. I've been a big fan of their team this year. I've been a fan of their teams in the past, but I think this team is really good this year. And, I think this will reflect on my rankings. But, I think he really found a really good way to coach that team and a style. And I think we saw it when they played us at the Breslin. And, we were a different team, but they kicked our butt. And I obviously picked up a great transfer in AJ Storr, and having, senior guy, experienced guys and Stephen Crowell and Tyler Wall and Chucky Hepburn. I expect big things from Wisconsin this year in the Big Ten, and that's why he's my coach of the year.
Yeah, Greg Gard. I mean, his teams are going to be tough. He's an assault victim on national television. But yeah, I mean, Greg Gard is a great coach. Those Wisconsin teams the last few years are always tough. Even back with Bo Ryan, I mean, Wisconsin has a certain brand of basketball, and Greg Gard is definitely continuing that. So yeah, I also like that pick. I think Greg Gard is definitely going to be in serious consideration this season. Okay, so first team All Big Ten. Do you want to start, Johnny, or do you want me to go?
I'll let you go.
Okay, so I've got two unanimous votes. I've got two guys that I think every single voter should vote to be first team All Big Ten. That's Tyson Walker and Zach Edey. I think those are the only two that deserve it. I think they are far and away the two best players in the conference. Yeah, I probably might have a little bit of bias on Walker, but I watch him a lot, and I watch a lot of other guys, and other guys don't got what he has. And then Zach Edey, yeah, best player in the country. So those are my two unanimous guys. Obviously, you don't have to have any, but I just think that it should be. And then my other two guards I have are Boo Buie, the Northwestern guard, the Michigan State assassin, as I've nicknamed him, because he always finds a way to drop 30 against State. Bruce Thornton, the Ohio State guard. I already talked about him. I think I love his size and his game. And then filling out my last spot is Clifford Amorie, the Rutgers big man, my defensive player of the year. So that's my first team All Big Ten. I usually like to go pretty standard on the first teams and try and go three guards, two bigs. I know sometimes it's a little different. Like this year's first team All America preseason had four guards. I don't do that, but I understand if someone does. But yeah, those are my five. I definitely think there's a bunch of guys that could be in and out of this list. And you touched on it earlier. Terrence Shannon, the whole situation with him and his indefinite suspension, if that whole situation would be different, I would probably have him on my first team All Big Ten. I think he's a great basketball player. Unfortunately, it seems like there's some off the court circumstances. Yeah, it's a bad situation, but yeah, I don't want that to take away from the fact that, Johnny, I want to hear your first team All Big Ten this season.
Couple similar ones, obviously, like you said, Zach Edey and Tyson Walker, I think should be unanimous. Zach Edey, obviously, as unanimous Big Ten player of the year is a little different. But yeah, Tyson Walker, I don't think there should be a discussion with him either. I think he's honestly in the top 6 or 7 best odds to win Naismith's player of the year. So
I think, something around there.
Something like that. So that should definitely make him a Big Ten first team all year. I went with Braden Smith. I've been a huge, you could talk about if you want to put two guys on one team or the whole discussion, but I put him in there. I think he's been unbelievable this year. He's really taken a big, I mean, he was an excellent freshman year. I think he's taken even another step this year. And I think that could be a huge difference in terms of where this team is in that March. I think he's really starting to, uh, I don't know, just really have control over these big games. And I think you didn't see that last year. He had some turnover issues. And I think he's just been excellent there. So that's why I got him in mind. I also want Boo Buie. It's hard not to. He's like a 20 point a game guy. He shows up in the big moments. And, if Northwestern tries to make another NCAA tournament. And then my last guy one was a little different. I went with AJ Storr. I wanted to put a Wisconsin guy in there as I have them high on my list. So I thought that kind of made sense. He's averaging 15 a game. I feel like you could have put a couple guys possibly at Wisconsin because they're so balanced. But that's why I went. And right, you talked about there's some other borderline guys. Jameer Young's been very good, even though Maryland has struggled. Bruce Thornton was on my list, my next list. So yeah, but that's my Big Ten team.
Yeah, you touched on it. I have Wisconsin very high as well. Greg Gard, probably my second pick for coach of the year this year. And you said exactly what I was about to say. I have none from Wisconsin because I think any given day, Wall will be their best player, and then Crowell will, and then it'll be Hepburn, and then it'll be Storr. Now Storr maybe is a little bit different now coming in as a transfer, and I have to watch a few more Wisconsin games to be able to definitively say that. But they are a very, very balanced team, and so I find that might hinder them in terms of having a first team All Big Ten player, but there's definitely guys that have the potential to do so. Maybe, yeah, 4 or 5 guys from Wisconsin could, excuse me, burst onto the scene in terms of becoming a first team All Big Ten. So we'll go back and forth here. I'll say who I have winning, then you, and then I'll go two, you go two, back. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Purdue's gonna win the Big Ten this year. Shocker. They, I just they're so much better than everyone else in the country so far this season. It's absurd. Their resume is already insane. Their wins. But you got Purdue also
I
at
do
one.
have Purdue. I do have Purdue. They're a
Okay.
different breed. They're a different breed
Yeah, it's
in the Big Ten and so far
nationally.
in the country. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like we might have the same number two. My number two, the Badgers of Wisconsin.
Yeah, they've just been really impressive this year, right? We saw them come into the Breslin and like I said earlier, beat us up. They got another win last night at home versus Iowa, and I just think they're going to be a huge problem in the Big Ten. I think we went into the year, obviously Purdue won, and I think a lot of people thought the Spartans would be too, and then we struggled out of the gate and kind of opened up this who will be the next team, and I still think there's could be anybody really. I think a lot of teams can still make that two spot, but right now I feel the safest with saying Wisconsin.
Me as well. Me as well, for sure. They're the veterans that they have on that team, like you said, with Hepburn, Wall, and Crowell. It's yeah, they're veteran. They've got great leadership. They're balanced. They're well coached. We've touched on them a good bit, and I like this Wisconsin team a lot. I think they could make a good run in March. Obviously, we'll have to see how their season goes and if they can stay healthy and all that, but I think they could be set up to make a deep run in March. So my three spot, I've got Michigan State. I think they're gonna figure it out and find their way. Obviously, I think, losing Jeremy Fears, I do think is going to have a bit of an effect, especially on the depth. But I do think that the Spartans will still find a way to put together a pretty good season in what may not be the best Big Ten year.
Yeah, and that's our first. I went Illinois at three.
Okay.
Just and obviously Tyler Shannon out at the moment is a big problem with them as their best player, but I think we saw them, I think it was last night, just beat the brakes off Northwestern, and they still got guys that can score it. The transfer Marcus Domask and Coleman Hawkins has been there. Another transfer in Quincy Guerriere. They've got some really good option at the wing spots, and still Dane Danjo. We talked about Luke Goody, and then Ty Rogers. They are a deep team. I think they still got a lot of talent. They're a hard place to go into and win. And I think was their start compared to our start, just with the 0-2 already, just gave them a little bit of the edge for me at the 3 spot.
That's fair. I think Illinois, very good. Dane Danger, first team All-American for names. Just a great name. I love Dane Danger. Uh, it's my 4 spot, a team I'm a little higher on this season. I'm going with the Ohio State Buckeyes at the 4 slot. Johnny?
That's where our Spartans come in. It was tough. And again, there's no reason why this Michigan State team can't finish second. And if there's no reason why they can't because it's that open. But yeah, it's going to come down to this team playing their best, and I think we're going to see that throughout the rest of the Big Ten schedule. It starts tomorrow night with Penn State, but this team's got to get rolling because obviously the 0-2 start is not the best way to start conference play.
Yeah, and I talked a little bit about Ohio State with Thornton and Jamison Battle. I just think they're so far this season they've been able to score a good bit amount of points. They've got guys that have been there before. They've got offensively minded players. I just think they're a type of team that will be able to kind of they might just have to beat everyone in a shootout, but I like Chris Holtman. I like what he's done at Ohio State. Obviously, last year was a struggle. I think they're going to use that a little bit for some fuel this season, and I just like them to come a little bit out of the depths this year. So 5th is where I have Illinois. And I'll just real quick on that. The Terrence Shannon situation is just what does it for me. I think if Terrence Shannon is with Illinois all year, they're probably the second best team in the conference. I think Terrence Shannon's probably the second or third best player in the conference. It's Edey, and then in my mind, Walker and Shannon are on their own tier between them and whoever's on the tier below them. But with Terrence Shannon being, he was charged, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there was,
The
he was
legal system
charged,
I need to
and
get better on. I know he was accused. I just want to make sure I don't say anything wrong. I believe he was charged.
I believe so. Yeah,
Okay, I
but
believe, yeah, in charge. I know he went to Lawrence in front of a judge or something, but got charged of rape in Lawrence, Kansas, while attending the Illinois-Kansas football game this fall. So he is indefinitely suspended. Obviously, that is another very sad and unfortunate situation. Um, so Illinois star guard will be out possibly for the rest of the season. Obviously, it's hard to tell. But I just think without him, they're they're losing a lot, and I think it just might be tough for a team to come back from that for a full season. Obviously, they played great last night, like you said, against Northwestern, but yeah, I've got the Illini falling a little bit due to the absence of Terrence Shannon this season, and yeah, I hope for everyone in that situation, the everything to get worked out, and yeah, I'll leave it at that.
yeah, and I think you're right with with Terrence Shannon, they're probably the second best team in the conference, but he's not there, so that changes things. I went with Ohio State. You talked about the guys. Bruce Thornton has been excellent this year. I think you've seen their sophomores take that jump in Thornton, Guile, Okpara, and then bring in a transfer and experience, not just experienced player, but a Big Ten player in Jamison Battle who knows this conference and can score. Holman's got he's got great guys there, and I expect them to definitely finish in that top half of the Big Ten.
Okay, so through the top 5, we've got the same 5 teams, just in a little bit of a different order. So I'm liking that. We got the same vibe. 6th, I had to go with my guys, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I like them. They took down MSU. I think that's one of the better teams Nebraska's had in the last few years with Tominaga and some of those big guys. I forget who's the big guy's name. I'm blanking on his name.
I wrote it down. Where is it? Riek Mast. You talking about
Yes.
him? Yeah.
Yes. He is a beast down in the paint. I like that 1-2 punch. I think it's a weaker Big Ten this year. I think Nebraska is going to be able to kind of hang around. Um, Coach Hoiberg's just going to let them hang around and hang around. And I think it's just one of the better teams they've had probably since they've joined the Big Ten. So I'm hoping that they can take advantage of it. I wouldn't say I'm a Nebraska fan by any means, but hey, I like to root for the guy that's been kicked down the most of the time they've been in the conference. So Nebraska's my sixth spot this season.
Yeah, and I think after the five, I think it can go any way in terms of who you want to put there. I took a look earlier, and it's way too early to talk bracketology, but I was just interested to see what's going on with Big Ten. And on ESPN, they had 8 teams in, and I thought that was too many.
I
But
agree.
he had Nebraska like the last team in, and he had Northwestern just in, and it's close, and all that stuff. It's gonna it all works itself out with the next 3 months. But I was just curious. But I got Indiana at 6. I think they've been underwhelming so far this year, but the talent is there. Their front court is very good with Phil Ware, Malik Renew, obviously fresh Mackenzie Mbako. And I think it comes down to their guards. Xavier Johnson's been out has been out basically half the season. And I think that's really the difference in their team. If he can come back, I see them making the tournament. But I just worry about their guard play, right? Trey Galloway's a lot of his shoulders. They're asking, some stuff from the freshmen and Gunn and Walker. And I'm not so sure without Xavier Johnson, they'll be able to finish at 6. But if he comes back, that's where I got them right now. So
Yeah, I think everything really for Indiana does kind of rely on Xavier Johnson. He was, oh my, excuse me. He was very, very electric as a freshman, had a great season, burst onto the scene really, and then injuries have just derailed his career almost since he's just had such bad luck with injuries, had such a tough time staying on the court. And yeah, I'll just tell you right now, I didn't have Indiana in my top 10.
and I think that's how it is.
I
Like, and
I
yeah,
think
that's how the Big Ten's going to be this
I
year.
think I changed my mind already. Yeah, I did. I did. I updated my rankings while you were talking because I don't know. I don't know. Indiana, I don't know.
It's hard.
I'll say this. I was a massive fan of Trace Jackson Davis. I thought he was so good. I was all like every time Indiana and Purdue used to play the last 2 years, I was like I just always thought Indiana was going to win because I thought TJD was a perfect matchup for Edie, and I thought he was just such an animal. Now, they obviously last year had some success against Purdue. They went 2-0 or 3-0 against Purdue last year. Yeah, they went
Something
undefeated
like
against
that.
Purdue
Yeah.
last year. I've always been super high on TJD, and they did essentially nothing with him. They made the Sweet 16 last year? No, they lost the second round to Miami. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I just I don't know if I believe in Mike Woodson. I think he's got to prove it to me. And if Xavier Johnson doesn't stay healthy, I don't know where it's going to come from this team. But yeah, I will say Indiana has been moved into my top 10, but
Fair. That's
not
how it is.
yeah, I mean, they're not I don't think they're going to have a great season, but we'll see. I could be wrong. Who knows? Okay, so on to number 7.
Want me to go? Or
Uh,
you? You
uh
go. Just say
I,
it.
yeah, I got Iowa at number 7. I like the Hawkeyes. I'm a big Fran McCaffrey guy. I just love his passion and his energy. And he's still got one of his kids there. It's Connor, right? Is there? I
I
have
think it's if I wrote it down. I think Patrick's still there.
Patrick still there. Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched Iowa this year, but I'm assuming their team is probably like their teams are almost always very similar and they're coached well. Fran McCaffrey knows this league like the back of his hand. Usually can pencil in Iowa for a good number 7 spot in the Big Ten, right down the middle.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. They're off to they're 0-3 to start the year in the Big Ten, so that's kind of where I slid them down. But I
Mm.
think they're a talented team. I talked about Owen Freeman as my freshman of the year, but Ben Crikey's been very good down low in the post for them. Tony Perkins has been there for a while. Peyton Sanford. I think you remember him
Oh
last year.
yeah. Yeah. He's a
So
great shooter.
yeah, you're right. It's a lot of the similar team is what you get with
Yeah.
Iowa. It's the same thing. So um, I have them a little bit lower, but I would not be surprised to see them bounce back from the 0-3 start and find a way to finish seventh. And that's basically a top half finish.
Yeah.
But my seventh, I went with Northwestern.
Okay.
Um, Boo Booey is we don't want to see him back, but he's back, and
Yeah.
he just does what he does. And obviously, a big fan of Chris Collins, and he's got some guys. They play a lot of minutes. Tyberry, Brooks, Barnheiser. So I don't know. It could be tough. I went with them at 7. I'm not sure I fully believe it, but we'll see.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure I fully believe that Nebraska is going to finish sixth and Iowa seventh either, but it's kind of just what I'm looking
Yeah.
for. Uh, yeah, I mean, I like Northwestern. They're actually in my 8 spot. Just we can flow right into mine 8. Yeah, I got Northwestern at the 8. You said it. I mean, Boo Booey, he's losing Chase Audige is huge for them. He was first team All Big Ten defensive team, I think his junior and senior year. He was co-Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year last season, and their second leading scorer. Also, I just think that's just tough loss. And Boo Booey, he's still great, and obviously we both had him on our first team All Big Ten. So I think Northwestern has a chance to finish around that 7-8 spot and be right around the bubble for the tournament. Northwestern, kind of similar to Nebraska. I'm always rooting for Northwestern to make the tournament. Like most of our life, like good bit of our life, they still never made it until like I think it was 2016. But yeah, so Northwestern at my 8 spot. Who do you got at 8, Johnny?
Yeah, and you had, Nebraska at 6. I got Nebraska at 8. Again, like you talked about, haven't really done anything in the past. It's been a while. Fan of Hoiberg. He's got some guys. Like we saw them beat us, unfortunately. But can they hang around this year in the Big Ten? It'll be interesting to see because it would be fun to see them on the bubble, right? Playing some big games later in the season. And, they've got some experienced guy, Tomiyaga, Wilcher, Gary. We talked about Most. So they got experienced guys. I think they believe in this team. I think you haven't really seen that in the past. Usually you pencil them in for 13 or 14th in the conference, and that's it. But I think it's different this year for them, and yeah, I'll be, rooting for them slightly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Johnny, I know you have to run in a few minutes, so I'm gonna make this quick. My 9 is Maryland, my 10 is Indiana. The main point of my top 10 is that Michigan, I think, is not going to be in the top 10. Is that because I dislike Michigan? No. It's because I think Juwan Howard, and I don't want this to be taken in the wrong context. Now, I'm only talking about coaching. I'm not talking about anything done outside of coaching, as in personal. I think Juwan Howard and Mel Tucker are very, 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 very similar hires. Obviously, we know Mel Tucker, how that finished. I think he was, given a big contract because he had one good year with one really good running back. And then you have Juwan Howard, who his first year, well, he had he had a consensus first team All-American, Hunter Dickinson, for 2 years. And they struggled. And I like Doug McDaniel, and I like Olivier. I not yeah, last name brutal. The Tennessee transfer. He's a good player. I I just don't see it. I don't think Juwan Howard's gonna make it through the end of the season. I follow a bunch of Michigan people on Twitter. They don't seem too happy at all with Juwan, the job that he's done this season. He's lost his recruiting touch. I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty low on Michigan. I'm pretty low on Juwan Howard. Um, Obviously, there was the report a couple weeks ago that was kind of back and forth. There was saying stuff on Twitter saying he was going to get fired and that there was an allegation, rumor that he had possibly gotten into an altercation with a coach, a Michigan assistant coach, not a Wisconsin coach. That already happened and wasn't a rumor. We saw it. But yeah, I don't see Juwan Howard really making it to the end of the season. But yeah, that's my
Yeah,
Michigan
so
take.
I went Iowa at 9, and I just talked about Iowa. We just talked about, so I went. Then I put Michigan at 10. I just
threw him a
think there's a
bone.
little bit too much talent there not to. I mean, Doug McDaniel's been uh
He's been great.
he's been
Great.
unbelievable.
He's
Yeah,
been great. I don't want to
he can
downplay that at all. Doug
score
McDaniel can
his
score the ball
improvement this
like
year.
it's nobody's business.
And but I think when you talk about Juwan Howard and about him coaching, I think you've seen such a pattern these past 3 years with not being able to win games when they're close. And that's the
There's
difference. And I think we've seen it already a couple of times this year. And I look at that Oregon game where Doug McDaniel drops like, I don't know, it's like 35. It felt like he couldn't miss and they couldn't win. And then there's been other games they dropped a couple of, Long Beach State, they dropped 90 and lose. Like that's, there's so too many issues, but there's a talented team. So I threw them at 10. I had Maryland just behind them at 11. So that's where my top 10 is.
I could see Michigan being in the top 10. They are talented. It, my issue with them is I think Juwan Howard's not a great coach, but I guess that's just my opinion. It's just one man's opinion on the internet. I know Juwan Howard doesn't care, but we'll finish with that. That's our Big Ten preview for this season. I know me and Johnny are both really looking forward to Big Ten play. Big Ten basketball getting underway this today, this whole weekend coming up here. Um, yeah, and for the Spartans, it starts off Thursday night at 7 on Peacock against Penn State. Johnny, you got anything else?
No, I'm just really looking forward to watching that game on Peacock and seeing if we can get that first win in the Big Ten this year.
All right, well, everyone, thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.